Alright, shalom to the elect of Israel. I want to start by giving all praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. And what I said was all the praises, honor, and glory belongs to Yahweh, who is the Heavenly Father, whom the world ignorantly calls God, in the name of his Son, Yahweh Shai, who is the Messiah, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus, in the name of the Holy Spirit, which in Hebrew is Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. And recently, I was going over the 10 Commandments, watching brothers go into it and stuff like that, brushing up on it, right? So I wanted to go through it, okay? And Lord willing, I might do another lesson on this here, okay? But even these scriptures, even these laws, all right, most of our people don't keep. And these, and it's other laws that branch off from these, okay? There's other laws that branch off. All right, so, I just wanted to go through it, man. All right, and get some edification on it. All right, Lord willing, it's edifying. Exodus 20:1. And the Most High spake all these words, saying, I am Yahweh thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Right? The Most High is the one that brought us Hebrew Israelites, us so-called Negroes, West Indians, Haitians, Latinos, Native American Indians, out of the land of Egypt back in that time. The Lord delivered us, all right, out of the land of Egypt back then. All right? Him, Yahweh, all right, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Verse 2, verse 3, thou shalt have no other gods before me. So we're not to bow down, worship, nor worship any other gods except Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, because we are supposed to worship Yahweh Shai, all right? But you're not supposed to be bowing down and worshiping no idols, Not supposed to do that, all right? And this also goes to show that, because the thing is, with nowadays with this micro C hip, this devil is trying to bring it to pass, right? And the scriptures say in Exodus 21, right, starting in verse 5, it says, and if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost. And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. So, back in the days, when we had Hebrew servants and everything, all right? And if the Hebrew servant loved his master and didn't want to leave his master and wanted him to be his master forever, the master would bore the Hebrew servant's ear through with an awl, which is like an ice pick. All right, and that would be his master forever. So it's like the same thing with this charagma. Okay? This devil, right? He's gonna give out this charagma to everyone. Or he's gonna make it mandatory and try to get everyone to take it, right? And the thing is, if you take it, you're basically calling him your God. You're calling him you're basically saying you want him to be your master forever. That's basically what you're doing with that with that charagma. All right, that's basically what you're doing. You're saying you want to serve this devil forever. All right, which who wants that? Okay, when you look up the word bear with me just a second real quick. Low.
Today is supposed to thunder shower by lunchtime. All right, so let's get put up on the machines.
Okay. Anyways, all right. Yeah. So there's that. All right. And when you look at the word charagma, or mark in Revelation 13 and 16, okay, you know, it says a stamp and imprint of mark. Then this is a badge of the followers, it says, of the anti-Messiah, but you know, we know there's not going to be one man, all right, called the anti, Christ or whatever. All right, but basically that charagma, is basically like also, you showing your allegiance with Esau, all right, and you want him to be your master forever. So but the scripture said in Exodus 20, you're not supposed to worship any other gods except for Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. You're not supposed to do that. All right. See? So, and this goes, and so, but once again, also too, you're not supposed to worship any idols. All right. Like for example, our people worship Jesus Christ, right? Jesus is not the name of the Messiah. Okay? They worship Allah and all that BS. Who the hell is Allah? They worship another gods except for Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. Let me get this real quick. It's the book of Judges 15. Judges chapter 10, starting in verse 13, it says, "Yet ye have forsaken me and served other gods, which," it says, "wherefore I will deliver you no more. Go and cry unto the gods which ye have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation." Right? Most High, because back then, even in the time of Judges, our people were worshiping, false gods, idols and things like that. Right? So the Lord is saying, look, you chose other gods besides me. You chose to worship idols and stuff like that. So, you know what? So since you want to do that, when you catching your tribulation, your hard times, your troubles, let them deliver you instead. And it's the same thing now. When Jacob's trouble comes, our people who's worshiping all these other different types of idols and everything else besides Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, let those idols deliver them in that time, which they won't, because they're not even real. All right, we worship, the true and living power, right? So back in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 4, it says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath." Says, or that is in the water under the earth. Now, some people will think that this means you can't, have pictures of stuff, or have statues or sculptures of things, right? Which is false, because you can have those things. All right, you can have that. Like for example, you can have a picture or a sculpture or something of an angel or whatever. All right, and you can make a picture or whatever like that. All right. King Solomon had it says, or that is in the earth beneath, right? That's what King Solomon, he had lions, around his throne. He had lion statues around his throne. Okay, so it's not talking about you can't make it, all right, and you can't have these different type of pictures or anything like that. Right? What it's talking about is you can't bow down to it and worship those things. If you have a sculpture or a painting or picture or something, you're not supposed to bow down and worship it. You're not supposed to bow down to it nor worship it. All right? That's why you look at the punctuation at the end of verse 4. It's not a period. It continues on. Verse 5. As Elder Menachem Zachbar said, says, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them." Says, so you see, the point is you're not supposed to, You're not supposed to bow down nor worship it. All right? But you can have pictures and things like that, and sculptures or whatever, you know, or different things. You can have that, you know, it'd be for decoration or whatever. Right? It says, for I Yahweh thy power am a jealous power. Right? The Most High is a jealous power, a jealous God. Okay? You know, he gets jealous, you know, when you go and worship, you know, something other than him. Hey, we're the Most High. The nation of Israel is the Lord's woman. Jeremiah 6:2. Okay? Let me get something real quick. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 5. For thy maker is thine husband, and Yahweh of hosts is his name, and thy redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. The power of the whole earth shall he be called. So he said, thy maker is thine husband. Who's our maker? Yahweh. All right? He's our husband. All right, so, you know, the nation of Israel is basically like the Most High's woman. Okay? Now imagine you having a woman yourself, a man, you know, you as a man, to the brothers, imagine you having a woman and she goes and gets with another man and you feel jealous, right? You feel that jealousy within you, okay? You know, that's how the Lord feels when we go and worship, you know, if we were to go and worship other gods, all right? Worship other idols, you know? Serving them, all types of stuff, man. You're not supposed to do that, all right? And guess what? The scriptures say, you know, about jealousy. Proverbs chapter 6, getting to the point. Proverbs 6:34. For jealousy is the rage of a man. Therefore, he will not spare the day of vengeance. You know, because when a man gets jealous over a woman committing adultery, you know, a woman sleeping with another man, that's not her husband, right? You know, that rage and that anger comes upon him, you know, and the Lord, you know, will get the same way. So you got to repent and stop doing that, all right? So, back in Exodus 20, verse 5 again, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them, for I Yahweh thy power and my jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. That goes into reincarnation. But also, let me get a precept, all right, showing you that it's talking about you're not supposed to bow down to them. Not that you can't have a picture or sculpture, all right, like you see brothers make images and depictions of Yahweh Shai and the chariots and things like that. That's okay, but we're not bowing down to it. This is the book of Leviticus 26:1. Ye shall make you no idols nor graven image, neither rear you up. Says neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall ye set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it. For I am Yahweh your power. See, point blank period. All right, going back. Exodus 20. In verse 6 it says, and showing mercy unto the thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. So if you keep the Lord's commandments, right, to the best of your ability, the Lord going to show you that mercy and that love, right? Verse 7, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh thy power in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. In vain goes into meaning, you know, emptiness or worthless. So, you know, you basically thinking, so basically someone who takes the Lord's name in vain, right? Basically, they don't see the name of the Lord as a big deal. You know, they take light of it, you know, and they'll misuse his name. For example, IUIC says you can call him anything you want, all right? You know, you're supposed to have reverence and respect to the Lord's name. You know, don't be also just loosely using it. Yahweh Shai said this. Matthew the 6th chapter, verse 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed goes into meaning, be reverenced or venerable, Supposed to honor and venerate the Lord's name, have reverence to it. All right, the name of Yahweh. Okay. You see? Salakia. All right. But so that's that right there. I'm not gonna go through the whole chapter, Exodus 20. I'm just gonna go through those verses. All right. Exodus 20, Lord willing. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Right, and the word Sabbath in the Hebrew is Shabbat, which means rest. All right, it says 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. Right, 6 days throughout the week. We have, to work. We're supposed to, work. We have to do our work, our pleasures, and all that. Right, and keep in mind it doesn't say, Sunday through Saturday, because back then in the ancient times, we had no Sunday through Saturday. All right, you won't read that anywhere in the Bible. Okay, you won't read Sunday through Saturday anywhere in the Bible, man. It was just the first day, second day. It wasn't this calendar. Our forefathers didn't have this calendar that we have now. Okay, so here you go. All right, so 6 days, you work, do your pleasures, right? It says, but the seventh day, which Sabbath is dictated by the new moon, so the seventh day could come on basically the seventh, whatever sundown that the new moon comes in on is a Sabbath day until the next new moon. All right. And then that's one day, but then outside of that you got the 6 days. Okay, so it changes as well. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger which is slacking, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. All right, so during the Sabbath, we just supposed to chill. Okay, really, And yeah, basically, on the Sabbath day, you're just supposed to really chill. All right, relax, rest, which is good. All right, also too, it says our so basically it says our manservant, maidservant, and everything. So hey, look, even our household, and hey, this proves in the kingdom, our slaves and all that is gonna have to rest on the Sabbath. All right, so our manservant, maidservant, we're gonna have slaves in the kingdom, so they're gonna have to rest on the Sabbath too. All right, the Sabbath is a day of rest, man. Okay, it's a day of rest. All right, and just to show you that on a Sabbath you're not supposed to do your pleasures as well, and this shows you that sex is prohibited on the Sabbath. You can't have sex on the Sabbath. All right, you're supposed to keep it holy, right? And when you have sex, it makes you unclean. You can read about that in Leviticus, the 15th chapter. Sex makes you unclean. Okay, but anyways, this is the book of Isaiah 58:13. It says, if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahweh honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. See, so you're not supposed to do these things. Okay, you're not supposed to do your pleasures, right? So this goes to show you that, one thing really, sex, you're not supposed to have that. Jake, a lot of Israelites talk about, is sex okay on the Sabbath? And no, it's not. All right. Let me get something else. It's lucky. Early, it's in the morning right now. It's morning time. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 35, starting in verse 1. And Moses gathered all the congregation of the children of Israel together and said unto them, These are the words which Yahweh hath commanded, that ye should do them. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day there shall be to you an holy day, a Sabbath of rest to Yahweh. Whosoever doeth work therein shall be put to death. All right, so really, working on the Sabbath day is punishable by death. That's a death sentence. See? Goes to rest. But thing is, and this is why you gotta learn from the correct teachers, which is the apostles, the elders of Great Millstone, the like-minded brothers under them. Thing is, even though we're not supposed to do these things on the Sabbath, if you have to work on the Sabbath, all right, then that's what you have to do. The Lord understands. He put us here in this captivity. Okay? The Lord understands, man. That's why we need mercy. This society, all right, is like a brother said, not conducive for righteousness, I believe. That's what he said. All right? Society is bad. Okay? But if you got to work on the Sabbath, that's what you got to do. To provide for yourself, provide for your family. All right? The thing is, we're supposed to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments to the best of our ability. So if it's something that, you can't, if it's a law that you can keep, all right, you could keep another part of the Sabbath, like, for example, not buying or selling. Now, the thing is, right, if you get hungry on the Sabbath, because Yahweh Shai hungered on the Sabbath, all right, but if you get hungry on the Sabbath and need to buy something to eat, then, you can do that, all right? I wouldn't say abuse it, but, but it's basically, just keep to the law, keep it to the best of your ability, man, all right? Exodus 35:3 says, Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath. So ain't supposed to be no cooking, all right? Ain't supposed to be no cooking on the Sabbath day. All right. So the Sabbath, man, is day of rest, and in the kingdom we're gonna keep it good. We're gonna be perfect. Exodus the 20th chapter, right? And verse 11 now, it says, For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Okay, so the Most High. Okay. Well, the Most High is the creator of the earth, but as we know, the creation story, Yahweh Shai and the angels created. They got Yahweh Shai got the blueprint on creating the earth, and was aided by the angels. So Elohim. All right, but the Most High still created it. But basically, the Sabbath comes from based on the 7,000 year of creation. All right, the Elohim, the powers rested. Genesis 2, verses 1 through 3. Slakia. It says, Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them Verse 2, and on the seventh day the powers ended their work which they had made. I'm reading like this week, because you have the proper understanding. The word God there, and he was Elohim, which means powers. Because it was, Yahweh Shai and the angels creating the earth with the blueprint that Most High gave them. Right? So this is how you would correctly read it. And on the seventh day, the powers ended their work which they had made, and they rested on the seventh day from all their work which they had made. right? And the seventh day is the 7,000th year of creation, okay? Because a day to the Lord is as 1,000 years, all right? So 6,000 years it took for creation, and 7,000 years, all right, and on the 7,000 year they rested from their work. Okay, so this is where the Sabbath comes from. Exodus 20 and 12. It says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which Yahweh thy power giveth thee. Okay? So, and that's the thing, you know, a lot of people, they don't honor their father and their mother. Are you supposed to, man? It's your parents. All right? You gotta understand, man, look, parents, man, they, you know, father and your mother, even though sometimes it might not, you know, be good to you or whatever, you still got to do what's right. You know? You still got to do what's right, man. Okay? So, even if they haven't been good to you, you know, you still got to honor them. It's what the law says, right? It's part of the commandments. All right? But in general, you're supposed to honor your father and your mother. Okay? Our people, some of our people be disrespecting their father and mother, especially the Southern Kingdom, because Southern Kingdom, especially Judah really got hit the hardest with the curses, man. Okay? You see it on them, you know? They don't have respect for each other. All right? Even their parents. You know? You always see something about a so-called black kid, you know, fighting against his parents or whatever, disrespecting them, cussing them out and all that. You're not supposed to do that. All right? You know? And parents, man, it's like, you know, look, man, the Lord could take them away from you. All right? Now you don't have any parents. All right? Now they in the spirit world and you on the earth alone. So honor them, you know? This is the book of Ecclesiasticus and the Apocrypha, also known as Sirach, chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. It says, hear me, your father, O children, and do thereafter, that ye may be safe. For the Lord hath given the father honor over the children. That's another thing. In this society, you know, the father is looked down upon. Okay, the mother is more so uplifted. All right, you know, but the father, you know, is looked down upon. First off, you are what your father is. All right, you come from your father. All right, your mother is really just an incubator. All right, you know, she has her role. All right, in being a parent over you, but for your father, you know, whatever he is, you are. If he an Israelite, you an Israelite. Okay, you know, this father, you know, the father, you know, he is an important figure. All right, and this society likes to downplay the man. All right, including the father, you know. But it says, for the Lord hath given the father honor over the children, and hath confirmed the authority of the mother over the sons. Whoso honoreth his father maketh an atonement for his sins. Like Apostle Gabar said, if you know, have your father still, because a lot of Jake, remember, man, a lot of Jake don't have their fathers, man. Okay? You know, some Jake's fathers passed. All right? Make peace with your father, man. Make peace with him. Even if he hasn't been good to you or whatever. Make peace with him, man. Okay? Understanding that, you know, this is something the Lord would want. Something the Lord wants. Alright? It says, whoso honoreth his father maketh an atonement for sins. It says, and he that honoreth his mother is as one that layeth up treasure. Now listen, verse 5. Whoso honoreth his father shall have joy of his own children. See? When you honor your father. When you have children, you're going to have joy of your own children. Your children going to honor you. It says, and when he maketh this prayer, he shall be heard. He that honoreth his father shall have a long life. And he that is obedient unto the Lord shall be a comfort to his mother. He that feareth the Lord will honor his parents, and will do service unto his parents as to his masters. There you go. All right. Back in Exodus 20. Verse 13, it says, thou shalt not kill. Now, in the Hebrew, right, that word kill is ratazak, which means murder. So, and there's a difference between killing and murder. Killing is the, you know, basically taking someone's life justly. For example, you know, they HOMO, you know, that's justifiably putting someone to death. But murder is, you know, when you take someone's life away for no reason, you put someone to death for, you know, no reason. All right, you're not supposed to do that. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Right, you're not supposed to. It's in the 10 Commandments, man. And Jake do this all day. All right, adultery is not a man having more than one wife. That's not what adultery is, because we can have that. All right, adultery is when a man sleeps with another woman. Basically, when a man sleeps with a woman a woman that is another man's wife. Okay, and when a woman sleeps with another man outside of her husband. All right, or the man that she's with, you know. I mean, sex is marriage, so, you know. Basically, adultery is when a man sleeps with another man's woman, and when a woman sleeps with a man that's not her man. All right, that's what adultery is. You know, keep your hands to yourself, man. All right, keep your hands to yourself. Okay. But so look, I just want to park real quick at the plantation. Barely 1 second, man. We're almost up out of here, man. I can't wait until this shit is over with. All right, but that's what adultery is, okay? And this is punishable by death. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10, it says, "And a man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death." See, so he's supposed to be put to death for that. Now, back in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 15, "Thou shalt not steal." Right, you ain't supposed to steal from, you know, you're not supposed to steal from one another, man. Verse 16, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." You're not supposed to you're not supposed to lie on each other. You know, not supposed to bring up, lies against one another. Okay. You know, false accusations. You're not supposed to bring it up. You're not supposed to do that. All right. Verse 17, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's." And covet goes in the meaning of desire. So, you know, you're not supposed to, desire that stuff, what your, brother got, You're not supposed to do that. All right. So, this, going through it. All right. I know it's going to be lengthy like this, but it is what it is. All right. So, Lord willing, it was edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of a millstone every well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. Shalom to the elect.